Yeah, I mean, but like you talked about having like a beginning, a middle, and an end there to a bit.
Yeah,
Like, what does that actually mean for someone who's like, you just watch a comic on stage, and you just imagine
yeah,
that you just have to stand up there and say some funny stuff, and that's it. That's all you got
yeah,
to do is think of a few funny lines and talk a little bit, and it's done. But like, there's obviously a
yeah.
lot of craft to it. Like, what does that involve? Especially now that you've had a little more experience. Like, what's your process of like
Yeah.
honing out like a bit or a joke?
Like I find, see, not now, what I think has definitely helped has been, just by doing a podcast every week. That's been something that I almost now would, if I have wee ideas in my head, I'm like, I'm going to say this to see if it works, and if it verbally comes out how I imagine it in my head. So that would be how I would sort of road test wee ideas, and if the ideas are funny, I'd be like, right, could I make that into a bit? But the first bit that I wrote was about let me see, it was about finding a lump in my testicle. That was my first bit of road, and that was true. So it starts in a bit of truth, right? So the bit of truth was I did find a lump in my testicle, and I thought, oh. And then you've that dilemma of, do you go to the doctor about it or do you not? And I thought, I should do it. It's a wise thing to do. As difficult as that was at the time, I thought, right, I'm going to go to the doctor about it. And in real life, what had happened was I went, the doctor, he had looked at it and he was like, I think you just have an ingrown hair there. And I was like, all right, that's awkward that I had gone in and he kind of, all that. But then I thought, right, that's funny that in my head, this could be something really serious. So that was, was my thinking. Like, this could be terrible, but it was something so mundane in the end that how do you build a story around getting to that point that, this could be really serious. You could have a message in there. And then the punchline is, it's only, so I sort of thought about it, right, that was fine because the doctor then told me go around, sit and get ready. So I thought, right, get ready is a weird thing to do. Like, get ready for a guy to look at your balls, weird. So I sort of made that into a bit where I thought, right, I'll go get ready. Then thought, how do you get ready for that? It's a strange thing. So I thought, like, how, like, what is ready? So I thought I have to sit on the wee table with my trousers down, and then the t-shirt hangs over. That's strange. So I thought I'll lift the t-shirt, then the t-shirt's in the way, then think I'll just take it off. So then the whole bit sort of gets into the stage where I'm just standing naked around the corner and he walks around. And then the punchline to the bit is I realised that this is way more awkward than just sitting on the table. So what I said to him was, what I wanted to say was, hey doc, what do you think this is? But what I said was, hey doc, what do you think of this? So it was a bit of a sort of swerve on it. And then he was like, well, I think you need to see a new doctor now because it's very inappropriate. All right. So that was the first kind of bit that I thought there's a beginning, middle, and an end to that bit. And I think that's kind of, the craft of it. You just have to almost learn and watch and take in things and then try to put your wee bits into it, So that was always my first bit. And then I think kind of everything else, just once you have that first, it's almost like once you crack it, you almost have like a wee formula in your head, and that kind of works for other bits really. And that's kind of how I put bits together. But the worst is if you write, so that's one bit. So then what I always struggle with is if I'm doing longer sets. So maybe if you're doing an hour or like you're just doing a show, how do I get from that bit to the next bit, like the wee bit in the middle? Like, where's this purgatory that I can kind of, connect the bits so as it sounds like it's connected in some way, when really you just go, how can I join up the dots? And that's the hardest bit, I think, is getting from one story to another, but keeping it funny and looking seamless. That's where the trick is, I guess. But it's easier said than done, definitely, that side of things.
I'd never actually thought of it like that. I'd never, because I'd always been thought more about the material than the actual like joining up
Yeah,
of it into like a coherent,
yeah,
or even just like something that doesn't seem like it's 10 jokes like read out one after another.
yeah.
You're almost like a comedic DJ.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to describe it. How do you segue? And because sometimes you could be talking about like that story, and I'd be like, oh, what are baby dogs like? They're strange. And people are going, how can you go from talking? So you have to then sort of figure that link, like the sort of, I guess, the ligament to connect the next bit on. And once you kind of get that, there's nothing better when you've lots of bits and you almost, it's like a jigsaw. You've all these different bits and you can go, right, this will go there, that goes there. How does this be a punchline? How does that, all fit in? And and even when I did my last show, I did a tour with it, and it was only for the very last gig. I was still working on it the whole way up to it. And then on the last night when I did the show in the Limelight, I'd done a show the night before in Oma, and I didn't like how it ended. I thought, no, the ending has to be, you have to end with a big laugh. So I thought there's one of the best jokes that I do in the set I'd done earlier on. I thought if I could just take that as a bookend and did that at the end, and that got a great response. So even there's a tour that I did with the show, which was like, I think it was 8 shows I did, and it was only on the 8th show that I thought, I'm happy with that, and I didn't even get a film, so I couldn't believe it. The time I finally figured it out, I don't even have it recorded, but that's all part of it, I guess. All working and building towards the finished article, which you're never going to be as a comedian. That's the thing. You'll never be perfect at what you do ever. You'll never be, 100%. And even there are guys like Dave Chappelle out there who are very close to it, but he'll probably still be thinking, I can improve. So. And that's part of it, the drive to make the next one better than the last. That's my thinking, is if I could keep progressing each show so that it's better than the last one, that's kind of a way to drive you forward with that, really.
That kind of incremental improvement is like a really, like, because you can just say, okay, I want to do this one thing like a tiny bit better the next time, but like over like a long period of time, then the improvements can be massive. But I was curious, actually, have you done a lot of touring outside of Northern Ireland? I know you were in Glasgow and Edinburgh, but have you done like shows in England and stuff? Do you have to alter your material then, like a lot?
You know what? I would say no, because I think for me, I was very aware that I like a lot of American comedy, and I like a lot of sort of work, like it's more the like sort of comedy store. The LA scene, the New York scene is always kind of comedy I like it's more sort of storytelling, that sort of long form kind of comedy, more so than maybe sort of more local comedy and UK comedy, really. So for me, I always sort of thought, I don't want to have my subject matter being necessarily entirely based around sort of colloquialism or local comedy or local references. So obviously you throw them in, definitely, because that's part of life, but where I can, I try to make it, my themes more universal if I can. Like my last show I did was called Dad, which was the worst title ever, but I thought the poster would be good if I just mocked up myself on Michael Jackson's Bad album, but just changed it to Dad, and I thought that was cool and looked nice. So that was that, but it was just about me having my first child, and I thought, that's a universal theme that people can relate to if they've been through it, or sort of something if they haven't, they can relate to because they know people. So I thought the whole show, if I did it in Belfast, or if I did it in London, or if I did it in, Texas, wherever, it would still kind of have themes that people could laugh at. So that's how I try to make the bits to be, just as universal as possible. But then obviously you throw the wee local segments in where you can, or depending on where you are, you can add wee bits and bobs to it as well. So I try to keep it as more broad as I can, really.
So who were like the people that really inspired you when you were coming up, or maybe growing up as a kid, that you thought, oh, I really like that guy? Or maybe when you started comedy, you were looking to for inspiration?
Yeah, well, I think it's a strange one, because whenever I sort of remember watching stand-up more so when I was a teenager. I've always loved the Ace Ventura films, and I loved Austin Powers and things like that, were the first kind of films that would stand. Even Home Alone is probably not really a comedy film per se, but I thought it was so funny, and it was through that I thought, I like, that's going to sound really simple, I like laughing, I like, I would be into comedy films and things like that, and then just the older I got, the more I sort of, I like getting into sitcoms like The Office. I love The Office. I love Peep Show, things like that. And then I thought, that's just really great, and that's what sort of got me into liking Ricky Gervais. To me, he would probably be, as close as what, if you could emulate anybody's career, it'd be him for me, because he does the comedy he likes, that he can stand over and enjoys doing, and also he writes a lot of stuff which is really, really great. Like The Office to me is as good as a sitcom as you're going to get. And then even Afterlife recently I thought was brilliant, and there are a few things along the way that of his that I go, Ricky, why'd you do that? But all in all, I think he's really good. And then obviously a lot of American comedians as well. I'm quite into it at the minute too. Like obviously Dave Chappelle, I mentioned, I think he's phenomenal. Like, and even probably less obvious for, I guess, my sense of humor would be Jerry Seinfeld. I'm a big fan of his. I think in terms of, I suppose when you're younger, I think you think more like, oh, these guys are naff, like Jerry, what's Jerry Seinfeld? But when you get a bit older, you look at him and you go, that guy is the most successful comedian probably of all time. Anything he turns his hand to is perfect. He's still going out. He's still doing the comedy clubs to this day, popping into the spots. We were in New York a couple of years ago for a friend's wedding and went to see a guy that I like, Adam Ray. And when we were there, the MC was like, oh, this is one of the best clubs in the world. And sometimes people just pop in to try things. And this is the lucky night for you guys, Jerry Seinfeld. And I was like, what? Jerry Seinfeld's here? And my wife didn't know who it was. So she was kind of like, why are you so excited? And I was like, that's Jerry Seinfeld. And she was like, well, you're like a child. And then I remember saying to her, I was like, you don't know what this is like, because she's a nurse. So I went, this would be, to me, for you, what this is like would be like if Florence Nightingale just arrived in the hospital. That's what this is like. And she was like, again, this is what my wife, not even being, tuned in, she went, but she's dead. So that would be more impressive. And I went, yes, it would, but just let me have this moment, please. So, and then he came on and he was just really, like, it was just easy. It was that level of just, this is just easy. Whereas I know when you do gigs, there's so many factors that play into it. Like I would like to just it be easy all the time, but there's sometimes you turn up to a gig and maybe you've been working or something in the day and you're shattered and you think, flip's sake, could be bothered with this. And then as soon as you go on, get a first laugh, you go, that was worth it. You're into the groove and that's fine. But that sort of, I guess, period before, if you're in a venue and you're not feeling it, you're going, oh, I could just be home on my bed now. But then as soon as you get the microphone, it's great. I think that. So yeah, just a variation of people I like to watch. So now that I'm older and I have more respect for the people who've come before me, I think that's a thing. When you're young, you're almost like, oh, these guys are wick, I'll be better. You'll never. These guys are the masters, and you have to just look at them, even sort of on a local level. I remember sort of growing up, I liked giving a headpiece. I think everyone did. And then you sort of get to maybe your late teens when it's not cool to like give your headpiece anymore. And you're like, you're just like, nah, that's a load of crap. I don't like that at all. And then now you see like Tim McGarry do stand up and you go, he's a genius, and he's got it figured out. Like I think you have a belief at the beginning. You're like, I'm going to come in. Like when I was in the sketch group, I thought we're going to Edinburgh Fringe. We're getting signed. We're going to Saturday Night Live. Easy, one run at it and that's it, totally fairy mice land. Like, whereas now you realize, oh, it's such a craft. You have to work and work and work. And then like just seeing how good Tim McGarry was just, unbelievable. And now I just want to also point out though that Tim is a very, he's a very dodgy guy. So if you ever see Tim, just steer clear of him, very dodgy. Wouldn't recommend talking to him. He's funny on stage and on camera, but personally, very, very angry man, very angry and aggressive. So steer clear of Tim McGarry. I just want to say that.
I mean, maybe that's good advice for people think you go up to him in the street.
And like he stays now when people, if they see him, they always shout, "Da!" And then what you don't know is he has a wee book that he carries with him, and he's a very, very quick artist. So he gets out his wee notepad and he does a very quick sketch of the person who does that, and then he just puts it away in his pocket and he remembers them, and then he always writes underneath it in the long grass. So he'll get you. So don't do that, or Tim McGarry is like the boogeyman in some respects. He'll hunt you down and get you. So yeah, just steer clear of him.
That's amazing, because he seems like such a chilled out guy. Like that's the complete opposite. Yeah.
I mean, he puts this persona on. He tries to be a sound, but listen, he's a spectre. I just want to say that he's a spectre of a man. Terrifying.
Thanks so much for listening. If you haven't already and you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast and to our mailing list. And don't forget, my book, Brexit, The Establishment Civil War, is now available for pre-order on Amazon. You'll find the link in the description below. Until next time, thanks so much for listening.